Welcome, everybody, to this episode of the Alliance Group podcast, and we have Mr. Steve Walther from Alliance Group right here in-house, here to talk to us about annuities. So, Steve, you've been working with annuities for like 6,000 years or something like that, right? Is it 6,000?
Give or take 5,970, right around in that.
Steve knows what he's talking about when it comes to annuities. And so what we really want to do here, Steve, is kind of talk about this product. Annuities have been really hot lately with things that have been going on in the market, with kind of the consumer mood when it comes to what they might be able to get or what might be at risk for them in the market. So this is a product that has been very popular lately. Mm-hmm. Lots of things that we're seeing online as far as questions about annuities. We have seen a big spike in people wanting to learn more. Mm-hmm. So that's what we wanted to do here today, is just come here, talk about annuities, talk about what annuities are, how they work, what the different types of annuities are, and really importantly, I think, trying to kind of determine what kind of people should consider having an annuity as part of their overall portfolio, and what types of people might it not be the best fit for.
And sometimes that's the most important part, is who is not a good candidate.
Right.
So let's go back to where you started with this, is what is an annuity? And I think this is a real important question, because not only the public in large, but a lot of agents don't really understand what annuities are, what their purpose are, and where they fit, where they don't fit. So let's start kind of at the basic level. Annuities, by pure definition, it is a contract with an insurance company that provides, with a lump sum deposit, it provides a guaranteed income.
Right. So it's something where you're setting something up, you're putting a sum of money in, and that's going to generate a guaranteed income for you at some point in the future.
Exactly. Now, whether it be immediately or down the road, that's where the design comes into it. So the income component in annuities, by definition, make them an annuity. But there are a lot of kinds of annuities that income never really comes into play. It's more of a tax-deferred vehicle. It's more of a safe vehicle. Mm-hmm. It's a place for people, for lack of a better word, to park their money.
Right.
But let's take a step back again and talk about some of the misconceptions. And when I say misconceptions, it's what do people think they are, and what do they think that they're not. There are a lot of talking heads on the radio, on financial shows, that will talk bad about annuities. And when they do so, they're really doing a disservice, because annuities in the wrong placement are not a good fit.
Right.
And unfortunately, a lot of times some of those talking heads are looking at it purely from a rate of return perspective.
Right.
But what they don't take into consideration is what happens if.
Right.
Exactly. And they don't take into consideration the needs and risk tolerance of that client.
Yeah, we have a lot of people who do a ton of annuity production, who help lots of clients with these solutions. They actually refer to annuities in many cases as safe money buckets, right? So just in the fact that they are referred to as that tells you kind of what the point of an annuity is. It is overall more of a conservative play to protect a nest egg or to guarantee something in the future, whereas you have this other pile over here that you might be doing things that are more liable or
at risk.
At risk, right?
Yeah.
Or they have the higher upside.
When I'm sitting with a client, one of the conversations I like to have is, you've done well. You have a business, you have money in the market, in your qualified money or in your savings, and you have a growing business, and maybe you're ready to start slowing down or selling part of the business or retire. What time for you do you think is the best time to start taking some chips off the table?
Taking chips off the table, right?
And it's a great analogy, because really, when you're sitting at the poker table, there's a point where if you're prudent and good, you start taking some of your winnings and putting them in your pocket.
Right.
And annuities, that's really what they are. Now, going back to, we started.
It's a really great analogy. I want to kind of pause there. So let's say that I'm someone who's saved my whole life. I've got money in a 401k. I've got money in some other retirement account. I've got a Roth IRA. All of these are things that are subject to, if the market decides to do another 2008 or 2020, those balances can drop, drastically. So that money is at risk. As you were just saying, it makes a lot of sense if I've got all these chips that I've worked so hard to build on the table and they're all still at risk. Well, as I'm nearing some sort of retirement age or a time that I'm going to want to start accessing that money, it does make a lot of sense to move some of those chips to somewhere that is safe, that's still going to get a little return, and that I know is going to be there just no matter what the market does going forward.
You hit it on the head, Sam. With that, that is the biggest play for annuities. We were talking earlier about all of the different kinds of annuities. And when I say kinds of annuities, not just products, but the actual design of those. And we were talking about an analogy, and we have all these financial vehicles. We have, your qualified money, which can be invested in the market. It can be invested in annuities. It can be invested in risky. It can be in all kinds of different things. You have your money in business and in real estate and in cash and in all of these different
permanent
financial
life
vehicles.
Insurance.
Permanent life insurance, obviously, yeah. That's one that we hold near and dear to all of our hearts.
Absolutely.
But with that is thinking of an annuity as one of those vehicles. What do you want from that vehicle? And using that analogy of a vehicle is, if you looking at a car as a vehicle, when you go out and buy a car, you buy a car with a specific need in mind.
Right. You either want to you want to haul stuff, or you want to have just a very
point A to point B,
point A to
best
point B
gas mileage possible.
Exactly.
Or do you want something that can haul a family, or do you want something that go 600 miles on a charge or on a full tank of gas?
Or you want something to go 150 miles an hour down a
Exactly.
stretch of the freeway and give you a thrill ride, right?
So the vehicle that you go out and buy is the one that best fits your need at that time, what you need it for. So a lot of people, when they talk about this is a bad annuity or this is a good annuity, well, take a step back and say, what is that annuity for?
Right.
And it may not be a bad one, or it may be a good one, but in the wrong position.
The wrong application.
The wrong allocation too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
So with that is, okay, what are the different types of annuities? So it really comes down to, do you want income right now? Do you want income in the future? And do you want to continue to put money into that allocation for income in the future? Those are really the three main types of vehicles with regards to annuities. Income now, income someday, or income someday that I'm going to keep putting money into. And basically the first one is a single premium immediate annuity. And what that means is a SPIA. Yep. Mm-hmm. So you've heard people say SPIA before, and it's funny. I've said SPIA, and someone says, "How do you spell that?" in the world of acronyms that we live with in this industry, that's one of the ones that we should probably learn and know. But
this is the most classic kind of annuity that most people think of, right? That single premium immediate annuity. You got someone who's older, right, and who wants to protect their nest egg. So they take that nest egg in a single premium, they dump it in, and that immediately annuitizes into an income that'll last the rest of their lives.
You're exactly right. One more component to that, not only just wanting to take their money and annuitize for the rest of their life, but they want to know how much they're going to make.
Right.
And so what an annuity does is, hey, I know I'm going to get this much from Social Security. I need this much a month. Mm-hmm. How can I make sure I get that?
People are trying to build their income plan for the rest of their lives. That's what people really are. We've heard it said all the time. It's not how big of a pile that you accumulate. It's how you're going to access that pile and how you're going to make that pile work for you to last the rest of your life, right? And not run out.
There's exactly. And that annuity can be designed a lot of different ways. It can be designed, let's say I don't have a spouse, and I want to put the money in, and I want it to be the most amount for as long as possible. So I would do a lifetime only option where I put deposit in, and then the company insures and guarantees me that I'm going to get that amount every month, however you set it up, quarterly, annually, monthly. I'm going to get that amount every month, deposited in my account, no matter how, if I live to be 5 more years or I live to be 105 more years from now. So whatever that time frame is, they'll keep paying it.
Right.
So obviously, the older you are, the higher the payout is. The younger you are, the lower the payout is, because the insurance company, on average, is going to have to pay it longer.
Right.
So let's change the example here and say that I'm married. Mm-hmm. That wouldn't work very good if I did that and I'm married and we put all our money into this, and then I died 3 years later and then my wife has no income.
Right.
So you can also do a joint life where it works off of the average of both of our lives. So if I pass away, the income will continue to my spouse during that same time frame. But now you get into where you can really make it specific. You can say life and return a premium, where if I put in $100,000 and I die 3 months later, they will continue paying that to my heirs until that $100,000 is paid out. It can be life with 10 years certain. So no matter what, it's going to pay it out for 10 years. If I die before the 10 years, I'll keep paying it for 10 years. So there's lots of different ways that you can design it. So it's very, very flexible and pretty interesting from that perspective.
That's the thing. So it's important for people to understand about annuities that at their heart, it is about creating that solution for making sure that you have an income that is guaranteed, that is built out, and then knowing that there are different types of annuities that can do different things. So you don't have to be locked into one scenario or another. There's a lot of different ways that you can design these products to do what you need them to do, and that includes obviously with every client that's you're going to need to take a holistic view at what else you have, what other buckets you have going for you, and figuring out what the right annuity solution is for your situation.
Right. And the second type of annuity is a deferred annuity. Now, it can be a flow deferred annuity or a single premium deferred annuity. And what that means is you put the money in, and you might want income in the future, but you don't know when. Or you have at least 10 years before you retire. So I'm going to put this money in. It's going to grow tax deferred. And then when I want to turn it on later on, I can annuitize it by turning it into a SPIA, or I can take systematic withdrawals out of it. Or if the product has riders that sometimes they have guaranteed riders that allow you to take money out of it. The difference between a rider and annuitizing it is the rider allows you to just take money out of it. And sometimes even when the money runs out, you still get to keep taking that money out, depending on how the specifics of that particular rider.
Right.
But the big difference is on the SPIA, once you annuitize it, you can't get access to it. So when you're taking money out of that bucket,
right,
via the rider or with systematic withdrawals, then you still have that bucket of money, whatever's left. So it does give a little bit more flexibility.
Right.
But you don't have the same guarantees you do on the other. But you do if you use the rider.
Right.
So let's take that a step further is, okay, what funds that money while it's sitting in the bucket? So you put a single premium deposit into that bucket. So here's where it comes into the different types of funding vehicles. One can be the one that's really popular currently with high interest rates is the fixed annuity, where the insurance company is going to guarantee a fixed amount for a fixed amount of years, whether it be 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. The insurance company says contractually, they're obligated to do this. We're going to pay you X amount for so many years. At the end of that time, it goes to whatever the current rate is. And you can roll it over to something else. You can take the money out. You can put it in another annuity. You can put it in mutual funds. You can do whatever you want with it. But for this amount of years, we're guaranteeing you that we're going to pay you this from the insurance company's perspective. We're going to pay you this for this amount of years. The money goes into the insurance company's general funds. They invest it how they want it. It creates liquidity for them as well to pay out life insurance claims, to pay out income out of other riders, out of whether it be living benefits or whether it be income off of income annuities. So that's a fixed annuity. An indexed annuity, which they've become really, really popular the last 15, 20 years, just like on our IUL, Index Universal Life, the insurance company is putting the money into their general account, and rather than crediting you that fixed rate, they're buying options, the options market on different indices. So very similar mechanism on how that works. Lots of different annuities, lots of different options as far as the different indices that you can pick, whether it be international, small cap, large cap, all those types of things.
Right. But the main point of an indexed account is that you're always guaranteed that you won't lose anything. It's built on whatever index you choose to reflect that performance on. It's going to reflect that market, and if it goes up, you're going to go up. Your value is going to go up, mirroring that index. But if that index goes down, you have that safety of the 0% floor. So again, the whole idea behind annuities, it's kind of a safe place to put your money, guaranteeing that you won't lose anything. But with an indexed annuity, you still have the opportunity to kind of take part in the growth of certain markets.
So long term, the fixed, you're gonna know what you're gonna get that whole time, and over a long period of time compared to the markets, it's going to earn a little bit less on average over an index. Now, I would argue over the last 5-6 years, the fix would have been a great place to have your money because the index, there's several years, last couple of years, it's credited zero. So, but like this year, a lot of people are going to hit the max or they're going to hit really high. So over a long period of time, which annuities are typically for, it makes sense. So the last one is called a variable annuity. Now you have to be securities licensed to offer that, at least a Series 6 and or a Series 7. And what that does is rather than going into the company's general account, it goes into sub-accounts managed by a mutual fund.
So it actually goes into the market.
Goes into the market.
Yeah.
Now some of the
you can lose money, or it has a higher upside than an indexed account.
More upside, no downside protection. There are some new hybrid ones that actually have components of all three in one,
right?
Where you can put some of your money in the index, some of your money in the fixed, and some of your money in the market. But those aren't. I don't know the percentage of sales, but I think more money is going into the index these days than anything else. With markets, when markets are more volatile, more people will go into the fixed. So it is also, there's a little bit of an emotional component to all of this, is what's happening now, and that's where people put their money. If you look at it a little more holistically, if you have it longer than a 5-year time horizon or 10-year time horizon, you might go into something that maybe does have more upside potential.
Right.
As you get closer to when you need the money, then
you might go so there's basically two sides of the scale. You got the fixed over here, which is the super safe. You've got the variable on this other side, which is the more risky type of annuity, where you actually, higher upside, but you could also lose, money if the market goes down. And in the middle, you have that indexed option, which is kind of best of both worlds, right? You got the safety of a 0% floor, and you have upside potential with that index solution. So again, it really comes back to not only the type of annuity that's going to fit your scenario, but also depending on your risk tolerance and your specific scenario, where you are in your retirement savings journey, you can really customize annuities to do not only what you want to do, but do it in the style that really fits your investment profile best.
Yeah, and it really does come down to each individual person. We all have different risk tolerances. We all have a different idea of what's risky, what's not risky. For some people that are the perpetual, I got to make this amount of money in the market, and I'm going to be chasing that. Annuities aren't a good fit.
Right.
For people that, again, taking some chips off the table, or there are some people, no matter what their age may be at that time, they are more conservative, and they would rather earn less and not lose any.
Right.
And that comes
up.
They
can't stand the idea of losing money, which is, there's a lot of people out there that fit that bill.
Yep, exactly. So it really comes down to having that conversation with your client is, what do you want? Now, I want to talk about one more thing that, we haven't talked about before, but I think is a very important consideration as well, is if you are meeting with a client that has an existing annuity, ask them why. And maybe it was sold that they didn't know what they were buying, or maybe their needs have changed. Because a lot of times we find out that people have annuities and it's meant to leave to their heirs. Annuities are a lot of things, but they're not always a great way to transfer assets.
Right.
If I was to take out an annuity, put in all my excess savings, and it's meant to leave to my kids, yes, it's downside protected, but when they inherit it, they're going to have to pay taxes on all the gains on that.
Right.
So it eats into a lot of that growth. If I was to take that same money and put it into a single premium life insurance policy, I still have access to that cash. But rather than leaving them at 100,000 plus growth, I may be leaving them 300,000, 400,000, 500,000.
Right.
So
and it all comes tax-free.
Exactly.
In the death benefit.
And I'm leveraging the living benefits if something happens to me along the way.
Right.
So if they're healthy and they don't need the money and they don't need it for income, maybe an annuity isn't the best fit. So that's something worth having a conversation about.
Well, let's actually kind of delve into that and see if we can come up with a list of some examples of people who probably need to consider annuities. What are those types of people? Age, risk tolerance, things like that. give me a few examples of people who depending on how they look might want to look into an annuity.
So maybe somebody that is an employee and their company does not have a retirement plan, and they maybe make too much to put money into an IRA. One of the annuities we didn't talk about is a deferred annuity that allows you to make ongoing contributions, not a single premium, but a flow annuity. So for those people, it might be a great way to save with some protection to guarantee a future income and safely putting that money away. So that's a good one. As people are getting closer to retirement, again, going back to that taking some chips off the table analogy, is for those people, it might be a good idea to say, hey, let's start locking in some of our money. And you don't have to do it all with one. Right. You know, a lot of clients I suggest 2 or 3 annuities from the standpoint of, hey, this is, we're going to start drawing on this one in 5 years, this one in 10 years, and this one in 15.
Layer it, right.
Layer it. So that way you also have an inflation protection component to it as well. So that's another.
I mean, classic scenario for me is like I think of myself in 20 years, right? Like, you know, hopefully I've amassed $10 million in assets. Let's hope. And I've got money in all these different buckets that are in the market, you know, 401ks, retirement accounts, things like that. And now I'm 61 and I'm thinking, okay, the last thing I need right now, everything looks pretty sunny right now. The last thing I want right now is for the market to take a crap and all of a sudden I lose 20% of everything that I've worked so hard to save right before I hit retirement age. We saw this happen to people in 2008 and other times, right? So I'm thinking, 20 years from now, moving a good chunk of that stuff into something that is 100% protected from loss, but still has a little bit of upside potential to let that money continue to grow, obviously at a more conservative rate. That might, and turning it into an income, right?
It just I'm a picture person when I think of this stuff, and
right.
You know, a lot of people, they want their retirement plan to be that Evel Knievel jump. But we've all seen Napoleon Dynamite. You remember when he's jumping his bike on that little ramp? You know, that sweet jump. Yeah. So it's all right to have some of it over there that we know we can manage that jump and to put some of it over there. So going back to your classic, who is it a fit for?
Right.
You know, somebody who is worried about how much they're going to have and the protection on it, and maybe they don't even turn it on, but they want to know it's there. There's a lot of people just want to have that safety blanket, that thing that they know that if they need income, it's there. The other thing now, turning this around, is who is an annuity not for?
Right.
And you had said something before about, you know, you at your age, you know, maybe in 20 years, yes. But if you have someone in their 30s, it becomes a little bit of a more difficult conversation to have, or I think being prudent being a good option, because you have someone in their 20s or 30s, they have 30 years, maybe more till retirement. They have time to weather some economic upturns and downturns, and they're leaving a lot of money on the table on missed opportunity on growth. So now a variable annuity maybe, but even that, a lot of the deferred annuities have a longer surrender period. Maybe something comes along. Maybe they need a house, or maybe they need to buy a house or an investment opportunity, and that money's tied up in an annuity. It's not a good fit. So younger people, typically not a good vehicle. And I say typically because there are some exceptions. There are some different things. You know, somebody gets a big windfall and they want to just put it into something and put it away and forget about it.
Right.
All right, there's a great way to put my money over here and just forget about it.
Right.
I would say if they're healthy, an IUL might be a better spot for that. But with that said is, usually, you know, middle-aged or older. The other thing people have to be really careful about, so for those of you who don't know, in my previous life, I was the annuity principal for a broker-dealer. I was partners in a broker-dealer, and all annuity cases that came in, we had the new account form and the client new account form, the risk tolerance, all that kind of stuff, and then we had the application of the annuity, and part of my job was determining on whether or not this was a suitability, right. If this was a good one. And one of the things I learned early on when you're talking about annuities and who are they appropriate for and who are they not appropriate for, was I learned this early on, was after every time you're asking yourself that, say, this is why I sold it, Your Honor. Because you have to think about how you're going to have to go back and defend what you're recommending to that client.
Right. Which is excellent for clients to know that there is an entire suitability tests that you have to pass at the life insurance company level. To before you're even quote unquote approved, somebody has to look at this and look at your situation, your age, your income, your risk tolerance, this whole form you have to fill out and say, okay, this does make sense for this client, which is nice to know.
It is. So with that is, if somebody has an appetite for risk and they're expecting more, then I would say annuity is not a good fit because it's not built for that. Now, again, that doesn't mean annuity is bad. It's just not the vehicle. Right. This guy wants a race car and you're selling him a Prius.
It's just not for you right now. It doesn't make sense right now. It might make sense later down the road.
It might make sense later on. The other aspect of that on what's suitable and what's not suitable, what is appropriate and what's not appropriate is when do they need access to the money? So if you, and maybe we're not talking about an income, but they might need half of it to buy a house. Mm-hmm. They might need half of it for college funding for their kids or something like that.
Right.
That's probably annuities not a good fit for that.
Right, because it's kind of locked in there.
It's locked
once
in.
It's in there.
You have to think about it as your put it away and forget about it money.
Yep.
Now, yes, you can access 10% of it a year in the deferred annuities. Yes, you can get out of. You can turn on the annuity and turn on the annuitize it, or you can turn on the income rider if it has one of those. Right.
But generally speaking, an annuity is kind of one of those illiquid, right?
Illiquid. Yep. So again, your risk tolerance on is this your safe money? Now, it's okay for people to have. When you're talking about asset allocation, is each bucket typically has a different weighted need, allocation, risk tolerance, all that kind of stuff. So it's okay to have one bucket that's still very aggressive and one that's in conservative.
Absolutely. This
one, hey, we're trying to hit doubles and triples and home runs, and this one we want to hit singles all day long.
Yep.
And anyone that knows baseball is the home runs and triples are nice, but you're going to win games with singles.
Absolutely.
And
also home runs and triples come a lot less often, right?
Less often,
You got to be consistent.
Yep. So you have to be consistent, and that's why that allocation is so important. So the when you need the money and your age is important as well because how long are you going to need it? Mm-hmm. Going back to annuities from the beginning on what is an annuity, the definition is an annuity is a deposit of money meant to generate an income. Mm-hmm. So it's protection against living too long for income.
Right.
Where life insurance is protection against dying too soon. So both of those should be a component of your overall allocation.
Yeah. It's all about setting up these buckets. And going back to what you said about, cars, right? And vehicles, I think it's pretty general, financial rule of thumb that any portfolio should be diversified with things that have different risk and that are designed to do different things, right? So I'm thinking a very healthy portfolio. I've got my Robinhood account, which is basically gambling, right? You're buying stocks, you're throwing money in there, hoping you hit grand slams, home runs, right? But at the same time, I've got my 401k, I've got my other retirement accounts, and I've got my permanent life insurance. Annuities are just another bucket that's that safe bucket, right? And it goes back to what we're talking about when it comes to those vehicles, right? And what they're designed to do. Yes, let's say your money that's in the stock market, that's your Ferrari, right? Now, if that's your Ferrari, an annuity is your pickup truck that's designed for a completely different purpose. Mm-hmm. If you are, if a bunch of Ferraris are racing and you pull a pickup truck up to the starting line, people are going to look at you like you're crazy. Like, that's terrible. That's going to do awful in this race. Well, yeah, that's not what it's designed to do. Same thing if you had a hauling competition, right? Mm-hmm. And you pulled a Ferrari up there, the pickup trucks are going to look at it like it's crazy, right? So it's all about there is a Ferrari, a pickup truck. There's no one's better than the other when it comes to these things. They're better at doing different things.
There's one more component that I want to articulate a little bit clearer with regards to those buckets. So one of the things that we've said over and over again are people have money in their IRAs and their 401ks. Now, again, those are the tax buckets they're in. You can have in your IRA an annuity. So you can take that mutual fund account that you have in your IRA that you're investing, or you might have stocks, you might have real estate, you might have all kinds of different things in that IRA account, and you can turn that into deposit that into an annuity.
Right.
So the IRA and the 401k, some 401ks allow you to roll part of it out into an annuity. That was some of the last tax law changes. So you can actually take some of the money out of your 401k, and it's still qualified. 401k into an IRA and hold it in that. Mm-hmm. So those are tax buckets, and I don't want to confuse those with what's in the bucket, what the engine underneath the hood is in each one of them versus what the actual vehicle is.
Right.
So that's an important distinction as well, is because some people think, oh, my 401k has to be mutual funds, stocks, different things like that, or my IRA has to be mutual funds. Usually they're mutual funds or something different. But no, you can use that annuity as the funding or the motor in that whatever that particular bucket is.
So annuities also provide tax advantages and can be a valuable tool in tax planning.
I'll give you a great example of that. Is there are a lot of talking heads that'll say you should never put an annuity into into any kind of qualified money into an annuity, because qualified money it's tax deferred. If it is an IRA or 401k, then it's taxable when you take it out. A Roth, you put the money in, no deduction, gross tax deferred, and it's tax free coming out.
Right.
So an annuity, the IRS gives it this one distinction where you put the money in and it grows tax deferred. So if it's qualified, it's tax deferred anyway, whether you deduct it on the front end or not. If it's qualified, you get to deduct it. If it's not qualified, you don't, but the money goes in, it grows tax deferred. And a lot of those talking heads say, well, why would you do that and take the expense, the M&E expense of that annuity when you can already get that in that IRA wrapper in a mutual funds or something else with more upside protection? And we were in a FINRA audit, and when they come in, they give you a list of your clients. When I say they weren't my clients, they were our firm's clients,
right? And
they say these are the ones we want to look at. And the guy from FINRA was probably 28 years old, and this was right before the market crash, one of the earlier ones, and the market was going pretty good. And he said, "Why would any of these guys put their money in these annuities, in their IRAs and these annuities?" And I said, "Well, first off, because they were going mostly in the index, and they were going into variable with the income riders." And where even if the market went down, their income would still be there. And he was checking these off, and we're going through them, and he was just kind of shaking his head saying, I'm going to prove this, but, this was a stupid thing, and they shouldn't do it.
Right.
Well, the next year...
Because the market's never going to go down. Right.
So 2 years later, that same auditor came back, and this was right after the market crash. And I said, you remember that conversation? I go, if that guy would have been in mutual funds, how long would it have taken him to get back to where these guys are, where they have all their money?
Yep.
Or they have this income?
Yep.
And he says, many guys have told me that since then. He goes, I get it.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because a lot of guys that you hear on the radio, and if you Google are annuities good or bad, that's the argument you get. They say they're costly, which those riders are expensive. Sometimes some of the different things on them can be a little more expensive than say a pure mutual fund, no load fund or something like that. But it comes down to what's the purpose of it? Tax deferred growth, downside protection, guaranteed income, safety.
Right. Safety, right? Safety is a virtue, right?
Safety is a virtue.
Safety is a virtue. And of course, going back to what I was talking about with the Ferraris and the pickup trucks, the Ferrari drivers are like, well, what is this safe thing? Like, we're not here to be safe. We're here to go 150 miles an hour and try to make the most money we can in the market, right? Of course, those people are going to say that about annuities. But again, it all comes down to, what are you trying to do? And it makes sense, and I hope it makes sense to our viewers, our listeners, that it's not going to be the sexiest thing in the world, but when that market does drop and you have some money in an annuity that is protected, and it's going to provide that guaranteed income, and you missed out on that entire drop in the market, you feel really good about that pickup truck, so to speak.
I used to work with this old advisor years ago from Detroit, and he would always say, anytime anyone asked me what the best investment is, and he'd say, the best investment is the one that kicks in when you kick out.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah. It's also the best one is the one that's helping you at that moment, right? So When the market's going up, obviously, and if you're seeing double-digit growth, it's great to be in the market and having that money at risk. But when that market drops, it's really nice to be in those index products, those annuities, things like that are going to protect that balance.
Yep. Well said.
All right. Well, Steve, thank you so much for joining us today, man. Learned a lot.
Well, thank you.
I know you'll be back. I think we've just scratched the surface on your expertise on annuities. So we'll definitely talk about this more in the future.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Great questions. And, if you have any more questions about these topics, please reach out to the Alliance Group. We are here to help you. And when you don't call, that's what scares us.
Absolutely. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Listen to this interview and more on the Alliance Group podcast.